Please welcome Get Your Guide co-founder and CEO Johannes Reck in discussion with Skift Senior Travel Tech Editor Sean O'Neill.
Well, Johannes, thank you for joining us here for Skift Forum Europe from Berlin. Thank you today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's exciting to be with you.
So in March and April, you sort of described what was happening to the tours, activities, and experiences sector as a nuclear winter. So we're focused here on Europe and how the recovery may be unfolding. So what are some of the markets and segments in the sector that you're seeing sort of coming online, and how do you see that rolling out?
Yeah, it's been quite a year, Sean, I must tell you. So we entered this year and it's been, GetYourGuide's greatest year ever. January and February were absolutely off the charts. We could see that travel experiences were taking center stage of online travel. It was not about flights and accommodation anymore, but really about our product, what you do when you get there. And GetYourGuide was just doing phenomenally well. I remember being at a board meeting on February 20th, and we were just all clapping our hands, in excitement of what was to come this year. And it only took 3.5 weeks from February 20th to actually zero revenue at GetYourGuide. Looking back, this is probably one of the most pivotal moments in business history. I don't know if ever a business went from hundreds of millions to zero in such a short period of time. And that's definitely been a very, very hard hit. Yet I think our fundamental thesis, and that would be really my key message to the Skift audience today. Our fundamental thesis that the future is all about travel experiences has actually not changed. And to your point, Sean, we're seeing very positive signs in recovery. I think GetYourGuide was the market leader going into this crisis. We are the market leader coming out of it. We have made sure that due to our wave strategy, where we've really tried to continue to double down on our strategic priorities and preserve our headcount and our cash position, that we would be in a position to not only come out of this crisis, but to actually sprint out of the crisis. And that is really what we're doing right now. Seeing phenomenal growth rates across Europe. Obviously Germany leading because we got the pandemic behind us the fastest, but you can also see France, Italy, Spain, very positive signs. We've seen some green shoots in the US as well, particularly on the domestic travel side. Although that obviously remains to be seen with what happens over the next couple of weeks. But overall, it's been the craziest business crisis that anyone could imagine, and I really feel for all of the tour activity suppliers globally, the hotels, all of those small businesses that have worked their heart out to provide customers with a great experience, and they've been really hit hard here. Yet I would say that I'm probably on the balance one of the most positive guys in the industry, and I think our ecosystem will come back. I've seen people really working hard on the recovery, and I think customers are there. They do want to travel. They do want to get back on the road.
Okay, that's a very helpful, optimistic picture, Johannes. So earlier this month, Viator, which is owned by TripAdvisor, floated the idea of having a listing fee, which would be a fee that the operators would pay prior to getting transactions. What is GetYourGuide's view about the idea of listing fees?
We don't have a listing fee, and we will not have one. I believe that there are many other ways to enable great curation of inventory. And one of GetYourGuide's unique strengths on the marketplace has always been that we've had very high quality supply. I mean, one of the initiatives that you guys know about is GetYourGuide Originals, which epitomizes our take on high quality supply, where we actually partner and work with suppliers hand in hand to provide customers with incredible experiences.
So I want to build this in for the audience. So one of the ideas about the listing fee is that if the tour operators need to pay in advance, they're only going to put on the site of resellers their best content. They won't just sort of like have sort of spammy kind of listings, and it's a kind of quality control. And what you're saying with like Get Your Guide Originals, which is sort of a white labeled branded service where you work very hard to get customer feedback to make sure that the content thing is, am I getting that right, Johannes? Or?
That's correct. Get Your Guide Originals is really about working with the operators to understand how we can serve customer needs better. What we try to do really is to partner with our operators and make them better, and not just get a one-off fee from them, which honestly economically is not interesting. I believe even Viator stated in their letter when they put it out that economically it doesn't make sense for them. Listen, we tried in this crisis to work really hard with our suppliers to bring them business and to get them back on track. I think that's the most important thing at this point in time that any business in tourism can do. And to that end, we did three things. We focused on cash, making sure that people get bi-monthly payouts, that those checks don't wait on our accounts for too long, but that they get the liquidity that they need to operate their business. Second, we focused on helping them with data to understand how they can get more bookings and how they can benefit from the upswing and travel faster. We gave them very concrete advice and even helped them to implement some important features like flexible cancellation, which is now rolled out across all of the Get Your Guide inventory, such as hygiene standards, which is very important to customers. And we know that from our research. We do display all of the additional hygiene standards that suppliers have implemented for our originals products. We've even ordered and paid for masks that customers can use, and we make sure that the operators and tour guides even get the FFP2 masks so that they don't get infected and are safe. So we're really trying to work with our community and to help the ecosystem as a whole. And I think imposing any type of fee at this point in time is just not something that's timely or should be done or will help the customer in any shape or form.
Okay, that's very helpful. It's helpful to know those initiatives too, like the bi-monthly payments, about how you're trying to support your partners. One thing you have mentioned, Johannes, and your co-founder Tao, when you guys have talked with us, is that Get Your Guide's main competition a lot of times isn't the Klooks and Viators, et cetera. It's the tourist information kiosk in the center of a town. And I'm kind of wondering, like, what is the pace that you feel of change in consumer behavior and moving to online and to advanced bookings? How do you see that changing?
Yeah, Sean, that's an excellent point. The consumer behavior through COVID-19 is staggering. And while Get Your Guide was almost the perfect prey in the first stage of this pandemic, people not going out anymore, being locked in their homes, not traveling. We're almost like a winner in the second phase of the pandemic. And please don't get me wrong when I say winner. This is a terrible crisis, and I would have never wished for it. Yet, if you look at consumer behavior, the biggest competitor of Get Your Guide was always people not booking ahead, not planning, not doing anything in destination. Going to Rome and ending up in the coffee place and then standing in line at the kiosk of the Vatican. That was the main competition. And that's what we've stated internally for years. And suddenly it's unthinkable to go to Rome and not plan. It's unthinkable to go to the Vatican and stand in line, right? So in a very weird way, the Get Your Guide product now in tourism becomes inevitable. It's the new status quo of traveling. You wouldn't even think of not using it if you were traveling to any type of leisure destination. And what we are seeing already in our numbers is that this consumer behavior tends to really hold and stick now. And we are recovering at a much, much faster pace than our overall supply, who previously also got bookings in destination, which is gone, right? So those type of bookings don't exist anymore. The online marketplaces like Get Your Guide are really benefiting from that. So I'm very optimistic for our business model over the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay, I want to push back on a point there, but before that, I want to tell our attendees, we do have an audience poll related to the topics that we just discussed at hand. So feel free to please participate in the poll. On the point that you just made, so absolutely, people are doing advanced research because they want to know, is a destination safe? The idea of walking up and doing things spontaneously doesn't make sense in the current situation. So I hear you. But that would seem to make an argument for Google just becoming even more powerful. And Google also has a reserve with Google sort of function, a price comparison function. To what extent are you sort of becoming more, as that shift gets made, that you're increasingly, if I'm already going to be researching 5 different things about for the pandemic safety on Google, why wouldn't I just go ahead and continue to book through Google?
Google and GetYourGuide have been, very good partners, throughout, most of our joint history over the last decade. And, Google certainly has, a lot of customers researching their, hotels, flights, experiences on their search engine. Yet I don't think that Google is actually the place where you should book. I mean, you could see for yourself during the pandemic, when shit hit the fan, who was refunding the customers, who was manning the customer service centers. That was GetYourGuide, that was not Google, right? So I would take any type of reserve on Google or any notion that Google becomes an OTA with a grain of salt, because they've just throughout the pandemic have demonstrated that they cannot do that. And in
that
fact,
makes sense.
They squarely rely on being the advertisement part. There is something special, I think, and everyone has noticed now in these turbulent times, to actually taking care of travelers, right? This is a highly complex product. You have to have local ground operations. You have to have real-time data. You have to really understand what you're selling, and you have to stand up for it if something goes wrong. And I think GetYourGuide has really demonstrated that in a very unique way during the pandemic. And we see that our customers appreciate that. They are coming back to us, and they're not coming back to Google now in the upswing. And that's really
That
what
makes
we see
sense.
in the data.
Mm-hmm. Now, in July, Booking.com essentially is going to hand over a lot of its experiences business in Europe to Musement, which is a brand owned by TUI. Has this move surprised you?
No, it's not surprised us. I think you saw the writing on the wall when Booking.com announced the layoffs of their internal tours and attractions staff. I think it kind of is telling that experiences is just not the same thing as hotels, and we've been saying that for all along. It's a very different thing whether you have 1 million hotel rooms or rental accommodations on your platform, or whether you're selling the travel experience. And we very much don't see us in competition with Booking on the hotel side. That's in my mind a very red ocean with a lot of very mature players. But we are squarely focused on that blue ocean, which is the travel experiences side, which we've been really optimizing and working on for the last decade. And I really do believe that it does take quite a lot to really understand that segment and to really build technology that is optimal for customers and to build global operations that work flawlessly. And you can see that in our customer satisfaction scores. You can see that in our repeat rates. You can see that in our growth rates. And I wish Booking all the best of luck with their new partner, but I do believe that it is something that you really have to make your #1 priority if you want to succeed at a global scale. And experiences is our #1 priority. I would doubt that it will be for Booking or any of the other OTAs over the next years.
Yeah, Johannes, that is one of the points that you've made in the past about, how this product of attractions and experiences is very different from hotels, and that it can be a mistaken metaphor when people try to use the same analysis for both.
And they've been, so
please.
Expedia, Booking, everyone else, they've been trying for many years, right? And it's not for the lack of resources. I mean, those companies have staffed very large teams on the topic, very bright people, lots of money, and they have not succeeded to compete effectively with us. So I think it's a very typical theme that we see over and over again. You see it in Disney versus Netflix. You see it with Apple Music versus Spotify, that people typically underestimate the incumbent, rewind. People typically underestimate, the young, startup that's 100% focused, while, all the eyes on the incumbent, who's typically a very large and slow company. And I think there's really something to David versus Goliath. And I think David, typically is faster, more agile, and can really get things done. And that's really what matters to customers. And if customers are on your side, then I think nothing can stop you.
That makes good sense. So on one thing that I talked about with Tao when he spoke with us in April, what your co-founder was that digital content was something that a lot of tour operators were sort of experimenting with, the classic idea of sort of trying to provide a virtual tour for people who are under stay-at-home restrictions. But there's a longer term trend. The pandemic eventually is going to go away, but digital content is not going to go away. We're going to see more VR content. We're going to see more digital, the Questo game, you have Pokemon Go, etc. So I'm wondering whether Get Your Guide has a view about, are you going to sort of like try to sell sort of like digital components along with some of the real world experiences in the future?
Yeah, we certainly have a view on virtual experiences. We did launch a series of virtual experiences when people were in lockdown, which we called World at Home, where we actually gave the opportunity to some of our best rated suppliers to actually broadcast their amazing experiences to travelers around the world. And this was really meant more of a, thing that we would give to the suppliers so that they could really showcase their products. We didn't charge for it. We didn't earn a commission on it. It was just purely this viral thing, and it really worked well while people were at home. But we can see already right now that consumer sentiment has shifted. No one at this point in time in Europe, where the infection rates are low, wants to stay at home and spend another day in front of the computer. People want to get out. People want to do things. People want to experience those sites and those experiences in the real world. And if you look at where you want to play as a company, I think GetYourGuide really wants to play in the experiences space, and I mean that in the real world experiences space, and not in some digital content play. I think Netflix, Spotify, Disney, there's so many great companies who do a fantastic job on the digital content side. I would never say that we could even remotely compete with these type of companies in that space. I think we can definitely compete in the travel experiences space, and that's what we're focused on.
Well, always appreciate hearing your great insights, Johannes. The logo for Get Your Guide there is behind you, the new one that you adopted about a year and a half ago. It looks very strong. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really grateful.
Thank you, Sean. It was a pleasure to speak with you.